Hi, I'm Mark Auslander, an anthropologist who studies memorials and memorialization in Africa and in the American South. Like many in the cultural production program at Brandeis University, I'm intrigued by the combined functions of written inscriptions and pictures in memorial practices. How are text and image deployed by the living to remember the dead and to come to terms with their passing? Last summer, while doing research in the Greenesboro, Georgia cemetery, I came across a puzzling example of memorial inscription. This refashioned headstone commemorates a Mary Irving who died in 1828. This apparently recent slab rests upon what seems to be a much older slab. Inscribed upon the slab is a diagram marking the location of Mary Irving's evidently fatal encounter with a venomous snake. At the top of the diagram is shown a house marked with the inscribed word house. Below the house is a path marked with the word path. Midpoint on the path is shown the spot of Mary's deadly accident, marked with the word here, next to a drawing of the coiled snake, marked with the word serpent, and a drawing of a bush, marked with the word bush. The path ends in a drawing of the spring, to which Mary was evidently headed, marked with the word spring. On the right of the slab, flowing into the spring, is a drawing of a stream. At the base are inscribed the words, "Our precious one taken away, Mary Irving, 1828." At this moment, I'm not sure when this new-looking slab was created, and how closely it resembles the early 19th century slab that it presumably covers. Nor do I know of other historical or archival materials about the life and death of Mary Irving. I hope to trace these stories on my next research trip to Greene County. As an anthropologist, I'm familiar with many human societies in which the bereaved use text, image, and other representational practices to reduplicate, at an abstracted level, the processes of dying and death. These representational acts seem to help transform the original trauma of loss towards something more like mourning. For the living to represent death on our own terms gives us a degree of control over death. In many of these societies, such ritual practices not only ease the pain of the living, but also are believed to aid the soul of the dead person as it moves from this world towards the invisible world and towards ancestorhood. Might something comparable be going on here? Around 1828, Mary Irving's bereaved kin depicted in stone a map of her final trip towards the spring. In this sense, they visually encompassed in text and image the circumstances of her tragic death. Yet might this inscription not only represent her death, but also, at some level, be intended to represent and assist her movement towards the hereafter? Might the spring drawn and written here also allude to the final destination of the virtuous Christian soul, going towards soothing waters of redemption in which all our sins are washed away? The inscriptions, after all, do seem to have scriptural reference. The serpent perhaps evokes all the temptations and snares that assail us along life's journey, echoing the serpent in Genesis, responsible for mankind's fall from grace and expulsion from the garden. Seen this way, the stone diagram could be interpreted as a kind of helpful map, a spiritual cartography for the newly dead person, reiterating not only the circumstances of her passing, but also signifying the spiritual path she must follow in going from her mortal home to her eternal home. To be sure, this interpretation is highly speculative. The historical record may not afford sufficient evidence to support or undercut this reading. My point, though, is that we need to be attentive to the minute particulars of these material fragments of memorial practice, as we seek to understand how persons and communities have sought, over time, to manage the enigmatic boundaries between the living and the dead.